Big shout out today to UC Resolution for sponsoring Inside the Sale with Rob Schade. UC Resolution specializes in networking, collaboration, and unified communication, helping organizations integrate their data, networks, and communication systems seamlessly. UCResolution.com. We make technology accessible.
Hey, Rob, I've got some really, really great news for you.
Hey, Kurt. Well, that's good. What is it?
Yeah, well, you just smashed your quota last month. I mean, it's incredible. I'm not even talking about great. You smashed it 150%. So yeah, great job.
Yeah, well, thanks. I mean, I really worked hard. I put in the extra effort, and I really dug in there.
No doubt, no doubt. So here's the thing. Nobody else was even able to come close. I mean, that's really how great you did. So I've got some really good news for you.
Awesome, like a bonus, maybe that trip, the President's Club trip.
No, not exactly. Not yet, at least. No, this is really good news, though. We're gonna double your quota.
Double my quota. How is that good news? I mean, I did everything I could to even get to this quota, and like you said, I beat everybody else. So are they getting their quotas doubled as well?
No.
What did I do to deserve this? You would think success would get some reward.
Yeah, about that, we actually had to cut the commissions in half as well.
How is any of this good news?
Welcome to Inside the Sale with Rob Schade, the only sales podcast that interviews real salespeople, real situations from across a wide variety of industries, markets, and verticals. Inside the Sale with Rob Schade. And now, here's Rob.
Yeah, that was fun. So I don't actually know if we're the only sales podcast that interviews salespeople only, but my research says it is, and I think I put enough qualifiers in that statement to make it true. So looking forward to today's show. I've got Alex with me. Alex has been recommended to me by a lot of people as someone I need to talk to because she is really good at what she does. She sets a lot of leads, but she's also just an all-around cool person. So with that, why wouldn't you want to talk to Alex? So Alex, I'm thank you for coming on the show. I'm looking forward to diving into our conversation today. And I always like to start with a little bit of how did you get into sales? What was your journey to sales?
Yeah. So, I've heard my story is like many people. It just kind of naturally happened. One of my buddies just said, "Hey, I work for this company. You should work for us." And I'm just like, "Okay." I was a barista before sales, and so I was like, "Okay, why not? Let's try it." And I just got in that way. Basically, because of my buddy's referral, I got the job. Zero experience other than, like retail sales, but people are coming in to buy from you, versus you trying to seek out to have other people want you. So that was definitely different for me. But yeah, all due to a buddy, I got into sales.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess tell me a little bit about what your initial role was.
I was a SDR.
So SDR, a sales development representative.
Yeah, so they started me out just cold calling, sending emails, and just all the basics of just everything that required cold approaches. That's basically what
Yeah.
I was in charge of.
Yeah, it's kind of like what and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show and so I'm buttering you up, but it's like it is kind of the harder side of sales, I think. It's
Yeah.
kind of like kicking the door in a little bit. Did you find that at all? Like what was that experience like?
Not to sound arrogant, but I'm used to just being in positions where people wanted me, wanted to talk to me, wanted to get their coffee, wanted to buy their clothes, wanted, you know what I mean? So going into the approach of I have to find people and try to convince them to want me, that was it was hard. You get some lovely people who are just totally down to take a meeting and want to hear more about you, but I feel like those are the few and far between. I'm not that person. You call me on the phone, I'm probably not answering it if I don't know your number.
Yeah.
So it definitely was a harder door to open. Not impossible, but yeah, just they would call us the front line of sales and
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah.
And what did a typical day look like?
Yeah, so for me, I was a heavy caller. So I would just set my lists. I like to start early in the morning and hit like the East Coast. And then after I'm done calling my East Coast, then just kind of move down the line based on time zones. That was an approach I did. Because I just saw the most results I got was me cold calling. Yes, I set some meetings from email but it was few and far between on email. So I set the most meetings by calling. I sent emails, I sent LinkedIn requests and, like private DMs and all that, but I saw the most results with cold calling. So to me, I was like, okay, what I would tell everybody is shoot every arrow. Keep sending that LinkedIn request, keep sending emails, but what you're finding the most success in, double down on that. So for me, that was cold calling.
Well, that's actually awesome because I know that I've come across this so much lately that there's this huge debate: is cold calling dead? Is it social
Hmm.
selling? Is it right? LinkedIn's the way, but I love hearing that actually just cold calling it still has a lot of benefits. So, how were people? I mean, when you would they would pick up the phone. Generally, did you have like a consistent experience, or was it all over the board in how people treated you?
I would say all over the board. In all, I was an SDR for 3 years, and honestly, I did not get super terrible mean people all the time. Sometimes, yeah. I called somebody that apparently had been dead for years, and a lady
Oh,
was really angry about it. And
yeah,
I just was very kind of, okay, sorry about that. Have a good day. And also having compassion to be like, oh, that could have really brought up hurt feelings of a loss.
yeah,
I had no idea. So it's just realizing people that are mean probably have other things going on, and it's really not about you. It's not about your cold call, you know? And so we had some of those people that answered the phone, but other than that, the majority of my calls were nobody answered. And then after that, it was wrong number. Like
yeah.
this isn't, or they're not the decision maker. And so when it actually came to people that actually were the decision maker or had something to do with it, um, oftentimes I would get them with the back pocket line. Just like, yeah, so it sounds like you're all set up. How would you feel just meeting with one of our experts just to have us in your back pocket in case anything changes? So I would like try to lure it in to be really like just, low stakes. Like this doesn't have to be we're getting married right now. Just hey, have us in your back pocket. So I got a lot of good feedback on that, and I got a lot of meetings set by just having that line. But then there's just some people of like we've been with our vendor for so many years, and I don't see how you could be better. And in those scenarios, I'm I know there's some salespeople. One person I've heard don't hang up the phone until they've given you three no's. While
Mm-hmm.
I've heard another sales director say the first time they say no, end the call. Because if somebody tries to push me after my first no, I'm blocking their number. And so I had a combination of that. I'm a big advocate of know your space, know your place. A lot of times you can figure out where somebody's at just based on how they're talking, you know? So,
Yeah.
did sometimes it was a no and that was done. Sometimes they said no, and I ended up actually getting them to take a meeting. So it was just I don't ever want to be known for that like shady manipulative salesperson. We know it. We've seen it.
Right.
We've seen it on movies or maybe even experienced it. But it was just I wanted a natural approach of like, hey, this is me. This is why I'm calling. Do you want to hear more? So
Yeah.
I just tried to keep it really low key.
I really like that approach too. I had a mentor tell me a long time ago that you don't want to go looking for a new friend when you're in real need of one, right? And so it's a good
Mm,
approach to kind of say, hey, this is just a back pocket. This is just to learn. We're not going to pressure you into doing anything. And I like that. Like it really resonates. Like when you can bring your personality with a prospect and let them
yes.
know that you're not the meme, the sales meme we've all
Mm-hmm.
seen, right? Or the like you said, the movie, right? And so, um,
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's great. So like, what kind of technologies did you see or that you were utilizing? I know we're kind of living in this age of like CRM is everything, but how about any sort of AI tool like demand gen? I know one of the things that I've been seeing, and I actually talked to somebody the other day that now they've got AI cold calling. They've got AI that's actually going in and taking all these metrics out of LinkedIn, and so supposedly, right, they'll give you thousands and thousands of leads. Did you ever experience any of that, or any of your colleagues?
We did have a platform, oh, I forget what it was called, but basically you had your lists and they could call, I think up to maybe 10 people at a time, and they would drop it if it was a voicemail, but then if somebody answered the phone, then they would drop all of their calls. So I don't know if that's necessarily AI, but it was like the computer trying to work to your advantage of getting somebody on the line while getting as many calls as you could get.
What did you think about that tool?
I didn't like it at all. I am a huge fan of calling one at a time because you never know just the amount of times I was heavy on cold calling, right? The amount of times I called somebody and there was no answer or anything, but one day they answered. Like, I did not even want a chance with me calling more than one person at once, and maybe that person actually answered, but it chose to go to another person. I
Hmm.
didn't Yes, you could make your calls more. You could, by the end of the day, show how many calls you made and how quickly, but it's really not about that at the end of the day when it's in sales. It's you need results. So to me, I just felt like I could guarantee better results by calling one at a time.
Well, and one of the things I think about a lot, and maybe too much, is the psychology of sales, right? We do think about, like I loved what you said when you got somebody on the line and maybe they were having a bad day or something was going on in their life, right? Like the person who
Mhm.
had passed away and their spouse was upset getting this call. I liked the fact that you actually took that into account because a lot of times, as salespeople, we're thinking about what the emotional state of it is of our prospect or our customer, but we also have an
Mhm.
emotional state as well, right? And so
Yeah.
sometimes I've experienced where sometimes I think sales leadership and business leadership forget that. They forget that people are
Mhm.
people, that sales people are people. So I like what you said there. Like there's an emotional state that we also have to be conscious of in ourselves. And when we're calling and we're doing all these things, yeah, we're grinding and doing the work, but we also have an emotional state inside of ourselves that we have to be conscious of.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where business can get really ugly when you take the emotional side out of the picture. We are working, like in the industry we're working with human beings. I guess to hone in, the flaws that I saw is when people took the emotional side out of things and they just kind of projected their next best idea on people. Like, no, this is the
Hmm.
best. This is what you need. To me, that's very childish. I expect that from kids. I was a nanny for years, foster mom of 30 plus kids. We have those kids of like, look at my rock. It's so cool. It's the best rock in the world. And you're like, yeah, buddy, that's a cool rock, but it's like we actually can get into that where you see that in my experience, leadership acting like that. And when you said, why aren't you selling? Or when they asked, like, why aren't you selling? Like, why is it so slow? It's like, well, not everybody wants your really cool rock. Not
Right,
everybody is
right.
interested in your really cool leaf you just found? And I know there's value on it, but it's not valuable to everyone. I saw how honestly ugly it could get when not everybody wants what you are selling and leadership gets annoyed with you about it.
Yeah.
And I what I also noticed, and curious your experience too on this, based on what I saw, the higher up on the chain of leadership, it's like the more far away removed they were from reality of sales. Like the
Yeah.
people that were in on it, they're like, yeah, well, this is it. This is where we're at. And then the people high up in sales, it's like, it's not 1950s anymore. Yeah, you probably could do that back in the day. And I know you still have somewhat of an idea of what sales are like now, but based on the way you're talking, it kind of felt delusional sometimes, you know?
Yeah. I do think it's human nature that the more we remove ourselves from the actual thing, we forget about it. And I love car
Yes.
analogies because most people drive a car, right? And I grew up in an age where like we had auto, you had a manual transmission, and I don't see how you could have texted and drove having a manual transmission, right? But
Oh, yeah.
the more we've removed ourselves from having to do anything with the automobile, we've also forgotten the awe of the automobile. And so I see these,
Wow.
like this is just anecdotal, of course, but I see these horrific car accidents, and you hear about these people texting and driving, right? And it just think, to me, my brain goes logically to that, like we've forgotten. We've removed ourselves from the thing and forgotten it, right? And so I do think that
Hmm.
that sometimes happens with sales leadership, is they remove
Yeah.
themselves inadvertently. They don't mean to, but now they're paying attention more to the bottom line than they are to that emotional side of sales. And that was one of the things
Yes.
that I wanted to talk to you about, because what we're really tasked to do is we're tasked with building relationships, right? We're tasked with
Hmm.
building rapport. And you can't do that on a numbers basis, in my opinion, right? You do it,
Yeah.
like you do it really well on an emotional basis. So like when you were prospecting, and you'd come across somebody who said, call me back later, did you have any way of cultivating? What was your way of like of making sure you maintained that relationship and build trust and rapport with that person?
What if I could remember it, I didn't do this 100%, but I recommend if you connected with somebody and they want to connect with you maybe in 3 months or next year, send them a LinkedIn request if they have it. Like, hey, thanks for talking. Looking forward to connecting with you next year. And because I didn't want to be that pushy person that's like talking to you every month now. Like, well, that doesn't have to necessarily be bad, but again, know your space, know your place. What did they ask?
Yeah.
Like if they said I'm way too busy now, like I don't want to keep bombarding them, but maybe down the road I can send them more emails or, like all that. But so that's what I would try to do. So, and if there's anything specific, I would make a note of it. Be like, hey, you said you were looking to maybe move towards Microsoft Teams voice next year and you gave me permission to call now. I'm hoping now's a good time. And, so just trying to like give details of our last conversation to make it more warm, even though they
Yeah.
might not remember you, but just trying to remember details that hopefully is still relevant for now.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen so many things over sales where like people would remember that, okay, you live in Denver, so I'm going to call you back with a Broncos story, right? And that's fine. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't think anything's wrong with that. That wasn't my style. My style was more to try to find something in our conversations a little bit personal. And I know
Yes.
it sounds contrived, right, to say, oh, I'm going to record this in my CRM, but I think the reality was it helped humanize them to me and me to them. And and
Hmm.
that was important to me because I never wanted to get to that place where I was dehumanizing anybody. And
Yes.
it seems so easy to do, honestly. It really does. So what do you think kind of the biggest challenge you faced in your role?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say the biggest challenge is I didn't have control of how successful I could be. And there's plenty of people that argue with that. Like, well, yes, you can. And then I would, respectfully argue back. Do you answer every cold call? Do you respond to every cold email? They
Mm-hmm.
will no, but then it's still your fault if someone doesn't answer your email or your call. So that was the hardest part for me, honestly, going into sales, because I come from jobs of this is the work, this is the choreography, move accordingly. In sales, this is the work, this is the choreography, and maybe you'll get a close. Maybe you'll get somebody to answer your call. So I would just say that unpredictability, just the fact that I couldn't predict it was the hardest. And yeah, that was it for me.
You bring up a really good point. I did an exercise recently with a sales team where I basically had everybody fill out these forms of like, what was the last major purchase that you made, and what constitutes major purchase for you. And then after everyone had defined that, we kind of went through and reverse engineered what was your buying decision. So everybody was able to actually see like, how did I actually come to this point? When
Hmm.
could you imagine like if a real estate agent was just out cold calling every single person saying, "Hey, are you about to buy a house? Are you about to buy a house?" Like, right, it maybe
Yeah.
wouldn't work in their industry, but that it's interesting that it does, and in some, but I think it's good for sales to people to have at least a little bit of understanding of what they personally go through in the buying process, so that way they can identify and relate to the people going through that as well.
Yes, I agree. And like for me personally, pushy doesn't work for me. That's a huge turn off. So when people are like, be more pushy, and I'm like, well, that's the thing is when it comes to work, that is a performance, and I'm here to perform well. So if a boss is saying I must do that, then that's one thing. But with how much free range I had in my sales position, what I did is just work to find the people that were the most like me. And in that meaning, I wanted it to be more natural and organic. I'm not that pushy, aggressive sales guy, so his approach is not going to be natural for me, right? There was somebody I used to work with, there was old recordings, and I would just listen to all these people's recordings of how they would do cold calls, and then naturally I gravitated towards one guy. I was like, "Oh, he's really nonchalant. Oh, he's more of the back pocket line guy." And it was just holding on to what naturally worked for me, but also not staying stagnant. Like, do push yourself, do try new things. But if you're just trying to be something you're not all the time, that can work for a certain amount of time, but eventually the acting gig is going to be up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've certainly heard it over the years. It's like, don't take no for an answer. Well, you're going to really hurt a lot of people and a lot of relationships if you take that mindset of taking no for an
Yeah.
answer. Instead, I always take the approach of like, what's in it for them? Like, what are
Yes.
they trying to figure out here? And sometimes that's going to resonate and sometimes it's not. But that really is a better approach for me personally. And I like what you said too about a lot of times the business leaders, they don't really realize it. And again, I don't want to
Mhm.
make them kind of the villain here and do all this villainizing of them, but it kind of is easy to do because what ends up happening is, like we said, you remove yourself too far from prospecting, too far from what your customer in the market wants, and then you inadvertently look at your product or service as a widget, right? And
Yeah.
so when you're dealing with things that are kind of like that you lose the touch. So one of the things that I've found too is when sales leaders get to that point, that's when they become really pushy. That's when they,
Mhm.
instead of saying, what is in it for my customer, what am I doing to make sure that I'm delivering a great product to the market and a great service to the market. Instead, it becomes about what are my salespeople doing to get more revenue, and that
Yeah.
can be kind of a toxic environment. Have you ever, as you're comfortable with speaking about, have you ever been in a situation where the leadership just was kind of out of touch with the market?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, to be vaguely transparent without airing all the dirty laundry, I noticed when the seasons were good of, oh, everyone's making sales, it's great. Like, there's no pushy, but oh, it just got slow. Why is it slow? What are you doing? And it's like, well, I'm doing this same exact thing that got me thousands of dollars, but this month we need new deals and people aren't answering the phone, right? And so it was in that, then there's a pressure of like, oh, we're not making as much money. Like now you need to do this. Now it's your fault. And it just, I mean, I'm one to hold myself accountable, right? But I can only do what I can do. And when the sales leadership got really pushy, it just made the environment really toxic. And, I could speak for myself of like, it's like all your work you were doing is discredited if it's not bringing results. Which to an extent, you have to look at that, right? You're in
Yeah.
sales. If you're not getting results, what are you doing? But if the thing that you were doing this whole time that brought you a lot of results, but now it's a slow month, like, put into the fact maybe it's summer, maybe it's Christmas break, maybe people are on vacation. And so I just definitely saw if as long as you hit your numbers, you're golden. As long as you have a leader that favors you. I've also, not, I don't know how much you want me to get into this, but it's like, it's really, it can get just, I don't know how to word it, political. People naturally gravitate towards you and like you. Some people just don't like you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm I'm personally like, I can vibe with anybody as long as they're respectful. You know, you don't have to be best friends with somebody to treat them respectfully. But it was very interesting because I saw the higher up I went, the worse I was treated, which is wild. I
Oh,
got to the
interesting.
yeah, I got to the top tier. I made it. I got to the top, right? Like this is amazing. And then there's a leadership change, so we have to factor that in. And again, when I was getting a lot of results, it was good. But then when things got slower, I just noticed the higher I got, the worse I was treated. And there was somebody else that also happened to them. They were performing higher than me. Like they had been on the top for longer, like they were doing amazing. They were number one in the position and they were treated not well. And that just baffled me because wouldn't you want, not that there's an entitlement, I don't want to come across that, but like for me personally as a leader, if I see somebody thriving, I'm going to extra hone in on them. Hey, what do you need? How can I make you more successful?
Hmm.
Not why aren't you making even more money? You're the best. Why can't you make more than what you're doing? It's like, it's this greedy, pushy mindset. And it just got that can get an environment toxic really quick. And yeah, that's what I experienced, honestly.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole nother show on just kind of greed and where it pushes people to do things that
Yeah.
maybe in normal life they wouldn't. And I've seen it. I've seen it for sure. So one of the things that I've always been interested, because I've worked with a lot of like business development and SDR, which is I believe stands for sales development role, right, or sales
Hmm.
development representative. So I have worked with a
Yeah.
lot of what I call demand generation as well. And one of the things that I've always just been fascinated about is because I've done my share of cold calling. So don't get me wrong, but when you have a demand gen and then you have a kind of a sales entity separate, there's just so much out of your control. And that's what I always found interesting was
Yeah.
like, like for the salespeople, like, or for the people who take the sale to the completion, they're always like, well, if we only got better leads, and then for the demand gen people are like, well, if we
Yeah.
only had better sales closers, like there's so like, do you find sometimes that is there like a symbiotic relationship, or is it more like a handoff relationship between like the account executive or whatever you would call it and the business development?
Yeah. So it, in my experience, when I had an account executive that I was partnered with, and they were more partnering with me and like giving me leads, things went well for me. I was still cold calling and doing that. But when you genuinely have a partner that wants to see you succeed, naturally that's going to boost your confidence. That's going to make you more motivated. And I think you're going to get higher results with that. Um, and so then I've had other partners before, and it was more just keep doing what you're doing, and which was good to a certain extent. Like, thank you for the freedom, but also, what's the point of being partnered if you're not going to like work with me on certain things? So I worked with a guy that he was my account executive, and he just told me either way, you set the meeting and I get the credit for it. So he would just give me certain meetings like, hey, this is a warm lead, you call him and set the meeting, because he knew like based on the system I was a part of, I get points for setting meetings. And so that was fantastic to work with a partner like that. And, some other SDRs weren't as fortunate. They would have other account executives that they were calling their own warm leads, you know? So it really makes a difference when you have a partner that wants to see you succeed and is truly partnering with you to get the result together.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I've always thought, in reality, like the business, the salespeople, the demand generation, we're all in the same boat going to the same place, right? So
Mhm.
why would there be this sense of like, and this is just one of those rhetorical questions that I don't think we'll be able to answer necessarily today, but I'm always amazed in organizations when I see that pushback from any certain department, like, throwing another person under the bus, throwing another
Yeah.
division under the bus, and it's just kind of sad. So, okay, coming kind of back to what the day looked like, and I think, to be honest, in my experience, I think you're a little bit above the norm, actually quite a bit above the norm. I've seen a lot of people like that look at cold calling, and they're like, I think there's a little bit of fear. I think there's a little bit that, you're rejected all the time. How did you overcome that, or did you even face that? Did you just was it something that just wasn't a factor for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like being rejected. That's not the my favorite feeling, but it's just it comes with the job. And honestly, why I liked cold calling, those were quick results. I didn't have to wait for them to email me back or anything. It was just, "Hey, answer the phone. Can I get you right now?" You know? So I liked that aspect. It was just quicker yeses, in my opinion, when you got the yes. But when it comes to rejection and people saying no to you, I actually had a friend that loves sales. She is a woman that loves sales. And I'm like, I was asking her on the rejection topic, I'm like, how do you like sales and what do you do in the rejection? She's like, I just get excited because I'm one step closer to a yes. And also, how can I bless this person that just rejected me? I don't need them. I will find somebody else. And it was like, huh. So I just worked on my mindset of when I got rejected, I would just on at my desk go, yeah, I got rejected. I'm one step closer to a yes.
Yeah.
And so it was really just what you choose to focus on can consume you, right? So I don't want to hold down and spiral down on like, oh, they were mean to me. Everybody else is going to be mean to me. It's like, oh, that person said no. I'm glad I can cross them off the list for now. And now we're moving on to a potential yes. So it's just I don't take it personally. Just look at them kind of like just a game, but then also in that, be respectful. These people aren't just money signs. Like how you were talking about earlier, just there is an emotional side to this. So it's just like balance it. No, this is just a game and it's called sales, and you are going to get rejected, but also you're going to find lovely people that want to
Yeah.
talk to you and they will
Yeah.
actually bless you, you know? So it comes with it, but don't take it personally.
Yeah, that is great. I mean, I years ago when I first started out, I had a guy called, and he just like yelled at me, literally yelled at me. We will never buy from you. Don't call back, right? And so I had a colleague that was sitting next to me, and I got off the phone. Took the 2 seconds to kind of wipe my brow, and I looked at my colleague and I said, "What do you do in those scenarios?" And he looked at me and he said, "Call him back in 6 months." And the funny thing is, I actually called back in 6 months, and there was a hiring freeze at the company, and he was retiring. So I was able to
Mm,
to I was able to sell them our service, and because they didn't have another option. And so it's just kind of one of those things where it's like maybe I just caught him on the wrong day, and so again,
yeah.
good lessons. Respectfully, I called him back. I didn't call him back and was like waiting for him to yell at me or anything. But you're right. And the other thing I really like about what you said which was I have met in my years in sales, I've really met some great people that actually
Hmm.
became friends. One gentleman who I worked with once. I'm still friends with him today. We talk on Facebook. He's retired now, but it's like we've developed a real friendship, and so like that happened just out of the sales process. Like how cool is
I
that,
love
right?
that. Yeah. And it can be like that. So it's like go into it with just high expectations of positivity, you know? And if it gets negative, okay, next. That doesn't define you. That's not actually who you are as a person. Okay, they bashed the company you work for. Your company is not your identity, you know?
Yeah.
So it's honing in on you're still good, keep moving forward.
Yeah. So, where do you see, like, if you had an eyeglass into the future, where do you think demand generation is going to go in 5, 10 years? Do you think it'll still be cold calling, or do you think we'll all be driving hover cars?
You know, it's interesting. So I'm a millennial. My mom, I grew up with a very talkative. My mom had a lot of friends and she was constantly on the phone calling. That's very natural to me, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I've met other friends that like, oh, that's so awkward to leave a voicemail. Like, oh, I don't want to call. Can I just text? And I've had heard what is it under millennial Gen Z? I don't
Mm,
remember their title. But anyways, they were just saying how they do not like calling. So the
yeah.
younger generations, they want the text, they want the email. And so I just, I don't know. I think it could go either way. How many years have there, you've been in sales longer than me. How long have you heard cold calling is maybe dead? Because I know the 3 years I was in it, I kept hearing that, but I'm like, clearly it's not because I'm getting paid for it.
Yeah, I think it's gotten harder.
Yes.
I think especially post COVID, not to blame everything on COVID, but post COVID, it seems like people aren't in the office as much. That's changing a little bit. People are screening their calls more. You do have to definitely do more calls, more touches. But I still think there is for me that joy when I get somebody on the phone and you have that quick moment where you're like on a tightrope walking, right? What am I going to say? Well,
Hmm.
how's this going to go? But to me, I actually enjoy that as well. So that's something that I hope will always be there. I don't know. I mean, it does all. The older I think one gets, the more one becomes more concerned about what the world they're leaving behind looks like.
Yeah.
So that that's almost like a philosophical question too of what will society look like, and my hope is that we'll always still we need more interaction than less, and right, and sales is just that microcosm of society a little bit, just like any profession, I imagine.
Yeah. And I don't know, because how many times have you tried to go to your cell phone carrier, Wi-Fi carrier, whatever, and you just want to talk to a human? No, I don't want to do the online chat. Like, I just want to talk to a human. So I'm hoping there comes to a point where there's just naturally both options. I feel the more we use computers and the less there's human interactions, the more people are going to miss that and also crave it in the end.
Well, and it's going to be really interesting, like with AI. I mean, I've done a few of those AI conversations, and they act like it's really a human, but they're not. They're
Hmm.
they're limited on what they can give you, anyways. And so are most humans. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
times, like you have to kind of go up the chain and go to a supervisor, go to a person that can actually make a decision. But I think part of being in sales has always taught me that there's always another decision maker, right? There's always another
Yes.
person to talk to. So. Well, this has been a great conversation. I could probably talk to you all day long, but one of the things that I always kind of like to say too is like, was there a big lesson? Like, do you have a like this is a big lesson? And it can be a life lesson or a sales lesson that you learned along your path. Was there anything that really stands out, that just a sale that you had or a conversation that you had that taught you a great life lesson about sales or life?
I mean, honestly, I think the consistent rejection was positive because it made me so much more. Okay, pause. Let me reword that.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting constantly rejected or consistently, like some days I wasn't rejected at all because nobody answered their phone, right? But honestly, like that pushed me to get more confident, to cold call strangers and try to convince them that my product is good and you should take a meeting. That takes a confidence, right? And so I honestly, working in sales all those years, just upped my confidence to be able to go blind into situations or nearly blind, not knowing the full story, and just putting yourself out there. And, if I can sell a product that I know minimal about, right? I'm not the IT expert, but I was selling it. How much more could I sell myself in a scenario? How much more could I sell something that I'm extremely passionate about? And so, really, it just upped my confidence to get out there and just go for it. And if somebody doesn't accept you, okay, try again because there is always going to be somebody out there that will accept you.
Yeah, well, that's awesome because, like, again, that is a life lesson right there. I've seen a lot of people just in life, not even outside of work or not in a career, right? But really just in
Hmm.
life, who they wanted something, but they just didn't know how to do it. And for me,
Yeah.
I'm kind of always like, well, the first step is to just ask. Like
Yeah.
it seems so obvious, intuitive to me now, but I look back like when I was a kid, and like it seemed kind of intimidating to ask things, right? Because there's that possibility of even know. But then, like,
Yeah.
after you get over that, you always go, well, wait a second, there's the possibility of a yes, right? And that's where
Yes.
it gets really fun. So I've actually said for a long time, one of the things that I think they should teach in school and maybe even higher education is, how do you truly sell yourself? Because you are the only person that's going to go out there and advocate for you. You're the only
Yes.
person that's going to go out there and know what you want, right, and ask for it. And I think sales really teaches that. So I like that you said that, right, because kind of getting rid of that concern of rejection in your life is something that I think everybody could do a little bit better with. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just like to encourage too, if the worst case scenario of you stepping out is somebody just saying no, that's not a worst case scenario. That's helpful. You now know what to avoid, or you now
Yeah.
know to go to the next. So, I mean, because of sales, I literally got offered a job because I just took a president of the company like I would a prospect. Like, okay, I'm not selling him IT services, I'm selling him me. And I ended up getting the job offer when I just used my sales skills, basically. So it really can help you out. And you saying them adding that in school to sell yourself, yeah, I would advocate for that as well.
Yeah, it would be cool. I mean, just teaching people the right way to ask, and the most important part of that is ask, right? Make the
Yeah.
call, do the thing. Well, Alex, I really appreciate your time today. I thank you for coming on the show, and look forward to having you back on in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks. Well, I really enjoyed my time with Alex today, and just hearing the keys to the sale for me. One of the things that just leapt out so much was the find success and double down on it. Wow, it is really interesting because, again, there's so many different sales theories out there, and I'm here to debate them and to basically say one's wrong or one's right, but I think a combination of everything is probably right. And in some cases, everything's wrong. But when you find your success, double down on it. And so I really liked that. The other thing I really enjoyed that Alex said today was that millennials don't mind, talking on the phone, and that's encouraging to me because I think in this day we're constantly told that cold calling is dead. And yeah, I hate the term cold calling. I mean, I think just picking up a phone and having a conversation really. So maybe we should come up with a new term for it that will more appeal to Gen Z and millennials, right? Because cold calling doesn't sound all that fun. But what does sound fun is actually just picking up and making connections with people and having conversations. And that's really where I think Alex's point of view of treating people like people and the conversation that we had around emotions, not only our customers' emotions, but our own emotions. And those are really important in the sale. And sometimes in my career, I've seen where when emotions are overlooked, then it can go bad, right? And the other side of it too is if emotions are too much played over, then that can be bad too. So it is really about thinking about finding the right balance and mix of emotions and sales. So I really enjoyed my time with Alex and just thank her again and look forward to having her on in the future. So again, this is Inside the Sale with Rob Schade, and look forward to next week.
Inside the Sale with Rob Schade.